They were TV's favorite liberal couple. Then one day, they disappeared from All in the Family. The studio claimed it was about a job in California, but the truth was darker. Rob Reiner was sick of being called meathead and desperate to direct movies. Sally Struthers hated her lines so much she spent $40,000 trying to break her contract. And the shocking final blow, the writers got revenge by having Mike abandon his family for a younger woman named Muffy. Here's the messy behind the scenes drama they hoped you'd never find out. The idea for All in the Family started with a spark from across the ocean. Norman Lear came across a British TV show called Till Death Us Do Part in a magazine article in 1968. Right away, he saw himself and his father in the show's angry father-son dynamic. It hit close to home. His dad had told his mom to stifle herself, and she had once called him the laziest white man I ever saw. Lear took those real-life lines and brought them into the show, shaping Archie Bunker's sharp-tongued personality. Getting the show off the ground, though, wasn't easy. Big names were considered for Archie. Tom Bosley, Jack Warden, Jackie Gleason. Mickey Rooney even took a meeting, but stormed out when he heard the pitch. He said the show was un-American and warned Lear he'd be shot dead in the streets for trying to put a bigot on TV. It only proved how daring the idea really was. Eventually, the part went to Carol O'Connor, who gave Archie the perfect mix of stubbornness and charm. Years later, in a 2025 podcast, Sally Struthers told a different version of how the show came to be. She said it wasn't Lear who discovered the British series, it was Carol O'Connor. He'd seen it during a trip to the UK and tried to adapt it himself, but no one would back a project led by an actor alone. So he brought it to Lear, who had the power to get it made. Struthers said Lear never gave O'Connor credit. She kept this story to herself while Lear was alive, but after his death, she decided it was time to speak up. Before CBS picked up the show, ABC had a chance to take it and passed. In 1968, they made a pilot called Justice for All, with O'Connor and Gene Stapleton already playing the parents. But just weeks before the network saw it, ABC had been burned by another show, Turn On, which got cancelled after one episode. They were scared of another risky idea, so they made a second pilot in 1969, changing some cast members and renaming it Those Were the Days. Even then, they still didn't move forward. The project sat in limbo until a CBS executive saw the second pilot in 1970. By then, a lot of different versions had been filmed, at least 17 pilots and 4 lost episodes, according to Struthers. In one of those, Irene Ryan from the Beverly Hillbillies even played Edith. Just imagine if that version had made it to air. At the same time, CBS was going through big changes. In 1971, they got rid of a whole lineup of rural shows. Green Acres, Mayberry RFD, even Lassie. They wanted to appeal to younger, city-dwelling viewers, the kind advertisers like. One actor joked, it was the year CBS killed everything with a tree in it. But clearing out those old favorites made room for bold new shows like All in the Family, Mass H, and Maude. Suddenly, TV was tackling racism, war, abortion, topics it had always avoided. Even after CBS got on board, the role of Archie Bunker almost went to someone else. Besides Rooney and Gleason, Lear had talked to other actors before settling on O'Connor. When Lear finally offered him the part, O'Connor only agreed to come back from Europe if Lear promised to pay for his flight home if the show failed. That's how unsure he was. He didn't even like the first script. CBS was nervous too. They expected angry phone calls the night it aired and hired extra operators just in case. But instead of outrage, the show got love, and O'Connor became Archie Bunker forever. Casting the rest of the family wasn't smooth either. Gloria and her husband went through 3 different actor pairs before it felt right. The first pilot had Kelly Jean Peters and Tim McIntyre. Then came Candice Azara and Chip Oliver. Finally, when CBS took over, they chose Sally Struthers and Rob Reiner. That's when the show finally clicked. Reiner's road to playing Mike, or Meathead, was bumpy. He had barely done any acting, just small parts, even one where he only said a single word on Batman. Richard Dreyfuss wanted the role. Harrison Ford turned it down, worried about the show's bold message. Reiner had already auditioned once and was rejected, but after Norman Lear saw him in a dramatic scene on another show, he gave him a second shot. Reiner nailed it. Even though he cared more about directing than acting, he threw himself into the role, and he ended up staying for most of the series, even writing a few episodes himself. Struthers also had to fight for her place. She auditioned while sick with laryngitis and still beat out Penny Marshall, who was dating Rob Reiner at the time and later became his wife. Struthers stayed on the show for 8 seasons, but it wasn't always easy. She felt overlooked. Most of her lines were forgettable things like, "I'll help you set the table, Mom." By season 5, she was so frustrated she tried to leave, even hiring lawyers. It didn't work, but when she came back, her character finally got some depth with a baby and a house next door. She said those last seasons were the most fun. As for O'Connor, he became the heart of the show, even if he had doubts at first. He won 4 Emmys for the role. He stood by his beliefs too. During a CBS workers' strike, he refused to cross the picket line and missed 3 episodes because of it. Still, he once said the show could have worked even without him. There was always something going on in that. Bunker House. When All in the Family first aired in 1971, CBS was nervous. The network even added a warning before the show began, telling viewers it would deal with uncomfortable topics like racism, sexism, and other sensitive issues. Goofy, fun, far from anything controversial. So when All in the Family came along, it felt like a jolt. No one had seen anything like it, but instead of scaring viewers away, it drew them in. People didn't just watch, it became the #1 show in America, and it stayed there for 5 straight years. That kind of streak had never happened before. The show connected because it talked about what was really happening in American homes. Families were already fighting over politics, race, and changing values. Now those arguments were on TV, acted, out by Archie Bunker and his family, and somehow it was funny. The cast wasn't full of stars at first, but their lives changed fast. Early on, the director warned them to prepare for fame. He was right. Viewers couldn't get enough. Behind the laughs, they saw reflections of themselves, of a country wrestling with change, trying to make sense of it all. The success wasn't just in ratings. At the Emmy Awards, the show made history. It won 6 major Emmys in one night, including top writing awards. That kind of clean sweep rarely happens, and it wasn't a one-time fluke. All in the Family went on to win the award for Outstanding Comedy Series 4 years in a row. That put it in an elite club with only a few other comedies in TV history. People in the industry were paying attention. The show wasn't just popular, it was respected. A big reason for that respect was Carol O'Connor, who played Archie Bunker. At first glance, Archie seemed like a loud-mouthed bigot stuck in the past, but O'Connor gave him depth. He made Archie human. Viewers could see his fear and confusion about a world that was moving too fast for him. O'Connor once said the world was painful for Archie, and that's what made him funny. You could laugh at his stubbornness, but you also understood where it came from. Some episodes showed Archie's softer side. In one, he got drunk and talked about how hard his childhood had been. In another, he accidentally joined a hate group, then walked away in disgust once he realized what they were. There was even a moment where he honored a Jewish friend's memory, showing real emotion. These weren't just jokes anymore. This was a character growing in front of our eyes. That growth wasn't limited to Archie. The show itself pushed boundaries. It dared to talk about things that other shows avoided, and it did it in a way that made people think, even while they laughed. One TV historian said there was television before Norman Lear and television after Lear. The creator of the show didn't just want laughs, he wanted to make a point, And he did. The show's boldness sparked spin-offs like Maude, The Jeffersons, and Good Times, which all explored serious topics with humor. Even museums took notice. Archie and Edith's chairs ended up in the Smithsonian, recognized as important pieces of American culture. That's how much the show mattered. But it might never have happened without one key figure, Fred Silverman. He was a young programming executive at CBS with an incredible instinct for what people wanted to watch. They called it his golden gut. While others were afraid of All in the Family, Silverman saw something special. He fought to get it on the air. He also made sure it got a prime Saturday night slot, which helped it reach more people. And most importantly, he didn't interfere. He let Norman Lear create the show he believed in. Looking back, Silverman said he was proud to be part of something that changed television. And he was right. All in the Family wasn't just another sitcom. It was a turning point. It made people laugh, made them uncomfortable, and made them think. And that mix, truth, pain, and humor, is what made it unforgettable. Sally Struthers, who played Gloria on All in the Family, spent years feeling trapped by her role. Episode after episode, she found herself saying the same kinds of lines, offering to set the table, asking where Michael was going, or telling her, a father, to stop it. She joked that if the writers didn't know what to do with her, they just had her walk upstairs to wash her hair. It frustrated her deeply. While Carol O'Connor's character, Archie Bunker, had depth and storylines that explored his past and beliefs, Gloria stayed flat. Struthers believed the writers, who she described as older and brilliant, just didn't know how to write for a young woman. As early as 1972, she asked them to consider having Gloria get a job to help the family. She thought it could lead to new, funny stories, but nothing changed. Eventually, her frustration became too much. After 5 seasons, she took a big risk and tried to break her contract. She spent $40,000, an enormous amount at the time, on legal fees to try and leave the show. But she lost the case. She was required to stay on for 3 more seasons. Ironically, those turned out to be the ones she enjoyed the most. The writers finally gave Gloria more to do. They had her and Michael start a family and move into the house next door. The character that had once been stuck in the background was now part of richer, more meaningful stories. Still, the legal fight showed how much control the studios had over actors back then, and how hard it was to break free. While Sally was struggling with her character's limits, Rob Reiner, who played Michael Meathead Stivich, had different concerns. Acting had never been his main goal. Even during his time on the show, he was thinking more about directing. He later said he was always more interested in writing and directing than being in front of the camera. That creative tension started to show in the later seasons. He would sometimes add ad-lib scenes with Carol O'Connor, including the powerful Choose a Crowd episode, where Archie reveals personal pain from his past. Rob's improvisational instincts clashed with the writer's plans, but they also brought a raw energy to certain moments outside of the show, but through humor. Back then, sitcoms were safe and silly shows like the Beverly Hillbillies and Green Acres filled the airwaves. Reiner was trying to break away from the meathead image. The nickname stuck with him long after the series ended. Even decades later, strangers would shout it at him in public. It frustrated him. He didn't want to be defined by that one role. So when CBS offered a spin-off called Gloria, he refused to return. The writers explained his absence by saying Michael had left Gloria and their son Joey to live in a California commune with a girl named Muffy. It was a strange exit, but it gave Reiner space to follow his true calling. He went on to direct classics like Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, and When Harry Met Sally, films that showed the range he never got to explore on television. Interestingly, the political arguments between Archie and Michael didn't just stay on screen. Carol O'Connor was a liberal in real life. He believed Archie needed to be portrayed with care. He often argued with the show's creator Norman Lear, saying Archie shouldn't be shown as purely hateful. He wanted audiences to see Archie as flawed, yes, but also human. Reiner, on the other hand, was outspoken and progressive. Raised in Hollywood by his famous father Carl Reiner, their real-life differences added tension to their scenes, but also authenticity. That friction made the show feel real. It helped people on both sides of the political divide see themselves in the characters, even when they didn't agree with them. Meanwhile, the relationship between Gloria and Michael changed as the show went on. At first, they were just a young, married couple living in her parents' house. They argued over little things like Michael sitting in Archie's favorite chair or eating too much food. But when baby Joey was born, things shifted. Gloria, overwhelmed by motherhood, had less time for Michael. They struggled to keep their connection alive while raising a child under Archie's roof. Eventually, they got their own place. George Jefferson, wanting to bother Archie, offered them his old house next door at a cheap price. Archie thought he was finally getting rid of them until he realized they'd be living right next door. The move gave Gloria more room to grow. She wasn't just Archie's daughter or Michael's wife anymore. She could finally explore who she was. For Sally Struthers, this was a welcome change. The character had more freedom, more storylines, and a stronger voice. That voice became more feminist as the series went on. At first, Gloria was often caught in the middle, torn between her father's old-school views and her husband's progressive ideals. But over time, she became more confident in her own beliefs. She started advocating for women's rights and supporting causes that mattered to her. It wasn't always easy. Her upbringing clashed with her new ideas, but her evolution felt real. Like many women in the 1970s, Gloria was figuring things out, trying to balance tradition with a desire for change. Eventually, this growth created tension in her marriage. When they moved to California, Michael became more focused on his academic career, and Gloria felt left behind. Their relationship began to unravel. Michael's academic path had always been central to his character. He started the show as a student and worked hard to become a college professor. That ambition gave him and Gloria the chance to move out. But once they settled into their new life, Michael's priorities shifted. He spent more time with fellow professors and less time with his family. Things got worse when he and Gloria staged a nude protest against a nuclear power plant. The stunt got him fired, bringing his career to a crashing halt. All his hard work gone in an instant. One of the most emotional turning points for Michael came with the Beverly LaSalle storyline. Beverly was a drag performer introduced when Archie unknowingly saved her life. She became a family friend and appeared in a few episodes. Then, just before Christmas, Beverly was brutally attacked and killed in a hate crime. Michael was with her and survived, but the event shook him and the rest of the family. Edith questioned her faith, asking how God could allow such a thing to happen. For Michael, it was a moment that brought his ideals into harsh focus. He had always believed in tolerance and justice, but now he saw the cost of hate up close. It added depth to a character that had often been seen as just the liberal counterpoint to Archie. When Rob Reiner left All in the Family in 1978, it wasn't because of any drama or bad blood. He had spent 7 years playing Michael Meathead, Stivich, but deep down, he always wanted to direct movies. His father, Carl Reiner, was a famous director and comedian, so that world had always been familiar. Even during the show's run, Rob had tried directing a few episodes himself. It gave him a taste of what was possible behind the camera. So once his contract ended, he didn't hesitate. He stepped away and went all in on directing. Not long after, he made This Is Spinal Tap, which became a cult hit. Then came Stand By Me and The Princess Bride. Both were huge successes, and suddenly Rob Reiner wasn't just Meathead anymore. He was one of the most exciting directors in Hollywood. Eventually, he started his own film company, Castle Rock Entertainment, and his decision to leave TV behind made perfect sense. Sally Struthers, who played Gloria, had her own reasons for moving on. She had been feeling boxed in by her role for a long time. Even back in the early 70s, she was already frustrated. Gloria wasn't growing much as a character, and Sally wanted more. She wanted Gloria to have a job, to be more independent, to be someone other than just Archie's daughter or Mike's wife. By 1974, things had gotten so bad that she tried to get out of her contract altogether. She felt stuck, like she wasn't being taken seriously as an actress. She wanted to take on dramatic roles, not just play the funny daughter-in-law. She once said that her friends kept telling her she needed to push herself and do something bold. By the time 1978 rolled around, she was itching to go. Just like Rob, her contract was up, and it felt like the right moment to take a leap. Their exits didn't cause much of a stir, though. Both had been with the show since it started in 1971, and they had helped turn it into one of the biggest hits in TV history. By the end of their contracts, Rob had done 174 episodes, and Sally had done 157. They didn't leave because of fights or arguments. It was just time. Unlike some messy TV departures, like when Carol O'Connor temporarily walked off and almost got written out, Rob and Sally left on good terms. They were ready for something new, and the show's creators respected that. The writers came up with a storyline to explain why Mike and Gloria would no longer be around. In one episode, Mike gets a job offer at a college in California. It made sense. He had started as a student, then became a teacher, and now he had a chance to move up. The job came with a decent salary, and it gave the writers a clean way to move the characters far enough away that they didn't have to appear regularly. The move to California also opened the door for future storylines. Later, we learned that things didn't go well out west. Mike and Gloria's marriage started falling apart. In a Christmas episode the next season, it's revealed that Gloria had an affair and the couple had separated. That story would carry over into a new show built around Gloria. By the time Archie Bunker's Place aired, Mike was completely gone. The writers gave his character an exit that surprised a lot of fans. Mike, who had always talked about fairness and equality, ended up leaving Gloria and their young son Joey to go live in a commune with a much younger woman, a student named Muffy. It was a shocking twist. Mike had always been the one lecturing Archie about values, but now he was the one acting selfishly. In one scene, he even tells Gloria she can't support herself or their son. It was hard to believe this was the same character who once stood up for women's rights. When the spin-off Gloria started in 1982, it showed a very different version of her life. Now she was a single mom, raising Joey on her own in a small town in New York. She had taken a job as a veterinary assistant, trying to make ends meet while learning to stand on her own. The show had her working for a vet played by the legendary
actor Burgess Meredith. First episode, Gloria already finds herself in trouble at work. A cat escaped and nearly kills with a...
Rob Reiner was asked to return for the show but said no, so they had to keep Mike out of the picture. Even with Sally Struthers' popularity, the show never found its footing. It was cancelled after one season, and just like that, Gloria's story came to a quiet end. The way Mike and Gloria's marriage fell apart reflected what was happening in real life at the time. In the late 1970s, divorce rates in America were rising fast. More than 1 million couples were divorcing every year, and the idea of the traditional marriage was starting to crack. The civic struggles, money problems, growing apart, changing. Values were the same issues facing countless real-life couples. Gloria had grown more independent. Mike had become more rigid. They stopped seeing eye to eye. Their relationship started with love and big dreams, but it couldn't survive the changes life threw at them. Back in Queens, the show itself had also changed. Archie Bunker's Place premiered in 1979, and instead of focusing on the Bunker household, it now centered around Archie's bar. That transition had already begun during the last season of All in the Family, when Archie bought the place from the previous owner. The bar grew into a restaurant, and new characters joined the cast. Archie now had a business partner, Murray, who was Jewish, something that made for plenty of new conversations and conflict. Other regulars included his old pal Barney, a blind teacher named Mr. Van R., and a few more familiar faces from the neighborhood. One major new addition was young Stephanie Mills, a 10-year-old girl Archie and Edith took in after her father abandoned her. She was Edith's step-cousin's daughter, and she quickly became part of the family. Eventually, the show had to address one more loss, the departure of Jean Stapleton, who played Edith. In the second season of Archie Bunker's Place, they revealed that Edith had died of a stroke. It was a sad but necessary turn that left Archie alone, trying to figure out how to move forward without her. And so, what started as a sharp, controversial comedy about a working-class family in Queens slowly evolved into something else entirely, a story about change, loss, and the way time pulls even the closest families in different directions. After 7 seasons, Rob Reiner and Sally Struthers wanted to move on from All in the Family. They didn't want to be tied to their characters anymore. But Carol O'Connor and Jean Stapleton had a different path. Their connection to the show didn't end so easily. O'Connor played the loud, narrow-minded Archie Bunker, but in real life, he was actually liberal. When the show ended after 9 seasons, he wasn't ready to let go. He kept playing Archie in a spin-off called Archie Bunker's Place. That show ran for 4 more years, and O'Connor was earning $200,000 per episode, huge money back then. Later, he reinvented himself as a small-town police chief in the Heat of the Night, which became another hit. Jean Stapleton, who played Edith, had a different story. She won awards for her role, but she didn't want to be stuck as Edith forever. She only came back for a few episodes in the spin-off before walking away. The writers explained her absence by saying Edith died of a stroke. In interviews, Stapleton admitted she didn't like being called Edith on the street. She would stop people and say, "Please call me Jean." Before the show, she had trained in theatre and loved musicals. She had dreams of doing more stage work after All in the Family. In 1982, she took on a very different role, Eleanor Roosevelt in a TV film. Her performance got award nominations again, and she later turned it into a one-woman show.